Hi class. In this video, I'm going to be going over some rational number operations that mostly focus on decimal numbers. So our first example, I have negative 3.47 plus 2.43. Now, because I have a negative adding to a positive and the negative is much better, my final answer will be negative. What I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to write these numbers down as a column method and line up the decimals. And I'm just going to subtract it because I'm subtracting because this is a negative number. So once I get an answer, it's going to be positive. I just have to attach a negative to it, and that will be my final answer. So in this case, I line up my decimals. 7 minus 3 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. Then 3 minus 2 is 1. So I get an answer of 1.04. But because this negative number is much bigger than this positive number, my final answer would just be negative 1.04. Okay, now moving on to my second example. Here I have to apply something called keep change change. So KCC stands for keep change change. If you recall, it means I have to keep the first number the same, change this minus sign to a plus, and change negative 5.29 to its opposite. So I'm going to apply it right now. I keep the first number the same, change this minus sign to a plus, and now negative 5.29 will be its opposite, so it will be positive 5.29. And now I just add these together. And because my positive number is much greater than my negative number, I'm going to end up with a positive number at the end. So I'm just going to subtract these now. I'm going to write it out as 5.29. I line up the decimals, 0.71. I'll subtract and get a positive number, and I'm just going to keep my answer as a positive number because, once again, the positive number here is much larger than the negative number. So 9 minus 1 is 8. 2 minus 7, I can't do that because 2 is smaller than 7. So I'm going to borrow from the 5, turn it into a 4. And now this 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. And now 4 minus 0 is 4. So my final answer is going to be a positive number, once again, because this positive number here is much greater than this negative number. So I got 4.58 as my final answer. Okay. Question C, when you have a number and then brackets next to it, it just means, it implies that they multiply together. So this would just be positive 2.4 multiplied by negative 6.5. So in this case, I'm just going to compute the multiplication. To multiply my decimals, I have to move the decimal place over until I get a whole number for any decimal number. So in this case, after I move my decimal places, I'm now going to get 24 times negative 65. Now I'm just going to multiply and ignore the negative for now. So if I were to multiply this, I'm going to have 24 and then 65. Okay. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 2 is 10. I add the 2 down. That gets me 12. And now I'm going to add a place value holder and multiply 6 by every number. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 2 is 12. Add the 2. That should be 14. Okay. Now I'm going to add these numbers together. 0 plus 0, 0, 2 plus 4, 6, 1 plus 4, 5, 1 plus 0 is 1. So I got this number here, 1,560. Now recall that my decimal place is at the end here. Because I moved the decimal once, twice, 2 places over to the right, I must now move it 2 places back to the left. So the result of 2.4 times 6.5 would be 15.6. Now, recall that a positive number times a negative number results in a negative number. So if this calculation here was just an aside, my 2.4 times negative 6.5 would result in negative 15.6 as an answer. So my final answer is negative 15.6. Okay, now let's move on to this last question here. I got negative 8.7 divided by negative 3. Now ignoring the negatives for now, ignoring the negatives, I'm just going to get 8.7 divided by 3. The rules for division are this. I have to move the decimal place until I get a whole number. So I'm going to move the decimal place once over here, but for division, the rules are slightly different. If I move the decimal place for one number over once, I have to automatically do it for the other number as well, even if it isn't a decimal number. So now that would get me 87 divided by 30. Okay, now I just compute this division here, where I have 87 here being divided by 30. So in this case, 30 goes into 8 0 times. So then I'm going to get a remainder of 8. I bring down the 7. 30 goes into 87 2 times. Because 30 times 2 is 60. I subtract that, I get a remainder of 27. Now from here, you have to know this. 87 is the same as 87.0. So I just added a decimal here because 87 is the same as 87.0. If the decimal is here, I have to add one up here as well now. Now I can bring down this 0 to let this be 270. 30 goes into 270 9 times. And now I subtract that, I get a remainder of 0. So my final answer would just be 2.9. I don't have to move the decimal place back after that. So that was an aside. Okay, now recall that any two negative numbers, whether you multiply or divide them, will become a positive number. So that means my negative 8.7 divided by negative 3. The final answer will be positive. And this is my 2.9 that I got from dividing these, ignoring the negatives. But if I do consider the negatives, my answer would still be positive. So my final answer is just positive 2.9. So that means negative 8.7 divided by negative 3 would just be positive 2.9.